Hello, everyone. I am Brady Bridges, and I'm the broker and owner of Reside Real Estate here in Fort Worth, Texas. I want to welcome you to another episode of Real Talk with Reside Real Estate. We are a top producing team here in Fort Worth, Texas, and we want this podcast to be a resource for anyone looking to learn more about real estate and the great city of Fort Worth. Today, I'm joined by Chris Amador, the owner of CKA Home Inspection here in Fort Worth. Chris has lived in Fort Worth for over 35 years and has been married to his wife, Tracy, for over 30. Chris and Tracy have two amazing daughters, Ashley and Avery, and Chris has been in the home inspection business for a little over 6 years. Chris, thanks for joining us.
No problem. Thank you for having me, Brady.
So, Chris, kind of tell us a little bit about what you do and what your role is in the home buying process.
We actually have multi-roles. We can do a pre-inspection agreement, pre-sale agreement, phase inspection, new buy, new build, investment properties. We do the whole gamut.
Okay, so let's just go back. If I didn't know what any of that was, so tell me what is the role of an inspector? So, I know on our end, whenever we get somebody under contract, we call you guys and say, hey, we need this house to get checked out. So what credentials and what type of training have you done to go into these homes and be able to tell people what needs to be fixed or what's going on with it?
Sure. So basically, the home inspection process is basically a information gathering source for somebody to look for buying or selling a real estate property. Basically, that's the overview of a home inspector. We don't generally render an opinion on would we buy the house or not, and we get asked that a lot. Typically, we just defer to the problems in the house.
I've asked you that a few times.
I've been asked that just about every time. So, you learn to tell the client exactly what you're there for, and that is to give them an overview of the structure and function of the house that they are looking to purchase or sell.
Yeah, and I know, with our team here, you work with almost all of our clients, and I know that Chris is also one of my good friends, but he works with a number of some of the top producing agents in Fort Worth. So whenever somebody calls you, are you working on specifically, do you only do residential homes? Like what is your total area of expertise? Can you do commercial? I mean, what are you doing most of the time? What kind of clients are you working with?
Okay. So in Texas, we're actually under the TREC guidelines, the same as the realtors. Okay. So when you get a home inspection license, the top license is the professional license, and that allows you to open up your own business. Okay. And so you do have to have a license to be a home inspector. Just like a realtor, we do have CE, which is continuing education. Ours is 32 hours every 2 years. That's the qualification to become a professional home inspector. What we look for when we're in a house and when we talk to the clients is basically we start with, let's do the buyers. That's the most prevalent. Most people understand the buyers hire a home inspector. So what we do is we go in there and we're looking for specific areas of the house that lead us to give the client a good overview of the house. And that's going to be 5 major components of the house, along with a lot of tangents inside of those 5 categories. But it's going to be foundation, roofing, electrical, plumbing, and HVAC. Those are the main systems in a house that you look for as a inspector to understand how the rest of the house is functioning. And those 5 areas can lead you to a gamut of issues or a gamut of repairs, something that's been taken care of or something that does need to be taken care of.
Yeah, and that's kind of what we tell people whenever we get these reports back is we need to focus on the main things. And I think that's what's really hard for a lot of people, especially first-time home buyers, who haven't seen these reports. Sometimes they're 30, 40 pages long and it scares people. So I think that's good coming from you that the main areas of focus need to be the 5 major components because, if a roof's bad and insurance doesn't cover it, then you're kind of screwed. So you need to make sure. I always have an inspector come out for anything that I'm buying, and I always recommend my clients do it. So when you're going through a house, you've done the inspection, besides those items, what are the other main things that people need to pay attention to before they even make an offer on a house? If you're with an agent walking through a house, you obviously are a professional, you know what to look for. What would someone like just a typical home buyer, what are the signs they should look at to maybe avoid even moving forward on a house?
That's a great question. And really, let's put the first time home buyers aside.
Okay.
Because they're just deer in the headlights, right? When you walk into a home. So let's go to somebody, maybe an investor or somebody that's bought or sold a few houses. The first thing I do when I walk into a house is I use my first sense of smell. I look for if it's damp, if something like that, then we have something to go on. As a owner or somebody that's buying a home, you have a nose you can smell as well. We always look up in the ceilings as I'm walking through a house because that's where the stains are at. So those are things that you don't have to really have any kind of training on. You just have to be able to look past.
Just actually be observant of what's around you.
Except the shiny new toy in front of you. Exactly.
Yeah. And that does make sense because going with the first-time home buyers or somebody that's excited, they might just miss all that stuff.
Right. They're looking at the shiny object in front of them and not understanding exactly what's going on. And that's what they need us for, actually. That's why you need a bunch of professionals around you to guide you through that process.
So if you find something that's really wrong in the reports, obviously I've seen plenty of these. What, if the client calls you, do you have people that you can recommend? So like if you think something's wrong with the plumbing, do you give an opinion of that, or do you tell them to get somebody out to go look at it that's like actually a licensed plumber? Or, where does your job stop in the inspection process? And, how does that work, whether what you say, and then if an electrician comes in and says, no, that's fine, how does that work versus the professional tradesman, and then you giving your opinion on those items?
Exactly. So that's another good question. So the report doesn't obligate anybody to fix anything. So it's definitely a report. Again, information on the real estate transaction you're looking at purchasing or selling. That's basically what it's for. Now, when you start drilling down inside of those areas, really you look for mostly things that can't be fixed immediately. So if you're talking to a new buyer and they start talking about too many things at once, you have to focus them back on what they're looking at. And those are going to be the 5 main things.
Okay, Chris. So after an inspection, you get a report and you found things, let's say electrical's bad or something's wrong with the plumbing that you find, you put in the report. Where does your role stop? And let's just say they have an electrician come in and say, this doesn't need to be fixed, but you said something is wrong. Where does your role end, and where does it kick in for either a seller or buyer to take over and go to a professional in that specific area?
Sure. The way that works is we're going to identify any kind of deficiencies we can see inside of each category and subcategory inside of that category. The issue becomes, when do we try to say you need a professional, or when do we say a handyman or something like that can fix the issue? That's $1 million question.
I'm sure that's loaded 99% of the time for you because
exactly. So that's kind of like, should I buy the house question, right? So the way a home inspector looks at this is, once we've identified a problem and we've flagged it for a professional to come look at it, and a professional meaning somebody that's designated in that specific category, plumbing, electrical, HVAC, or whatever it is, we default to them. So if they come back and say that inspector's crazy, then we're just going to say that we understand that, and they assume the responsibility at that time. At that point, it's up to the realtor, the inspector, and the buyer or the seller to get together and kind of talk about what's going on at that point. But typically, you're going to default to the actual professional in that category.
Sure, because I'm sure it's impossible to know everything about everything, right? So you're going off of what your continuing education, everything else of what you're supposed to be looking for. And I guess things can change in between those time periods, right?
And especially something like a roof. Those things change daily. And it's also when you get to a certain point on a roof, it's going to be an objection call. So it's up to the insurance or the roofer guy to come out and give an opinion at that point and take over the actual.
Well, I know just working with you that a lot of times when it is one of those major components, you always, on houses I've bought or my clients, if you're not 100% sure, you always say, hey, man, I'd get this thing checked out because it's an expensive fix and you want to make sure people are protected. And I think you do a really good job of that.
I appreciate that.
So like on your inspections, do you have any kind of warranties or insurance? How does that work? Like if you say something's not wrong with the house or a certain spot, is that a snapshot in time, or because a lot of times things can happen in between the time you do an inspection and the house closes. So how does that work? If somebody comes back and says, hey, you didn't find this.
Well, that's actually on a couple of different areas. It's on the top part of the actual report, and it's in our pre-inspection agreement that basically it's surrendered a judgment at time of inspection.
Okay.
And like you said, a light bulb stops tomorrow.
Yeah.
Your oven quits working. I mean, those things just happen. We are insured. You have to be insured. Again, we're under Trek just like you guys. Mm-hmm. So it's not a Wild West out there like foundation or roofing. Everybody is licensed professionals with CE of 32 hours, like I mentioned before, every 2 years.
And I just think your job is very hard. I know in the summers you're on roofs at 110 degrees and inside attics. What do you find most rewarding about what you do for people?
I would assume it'd be the same as realtors helping people. Honestly, I've helped a lot of people, I feel like, move into a safer house than when I inspected it. And that's rewarding for me. Helping first-time buyers go over the whole report with them while they're there, help them understand what it is now, what it is going to be in the future, how to prevent things coming up in the future. So basically teaching education, the reward of somebody getting a first house, the look on their face when they get a good report in their eyes, those things are very
for as dirty as you guys' job can be sometimes, you have to find something rewarding.
You have to take the small rewards, man.
So just kind of segueing back to what we're talking about. So new construction or condos, how does that work on inspection with new construction or like a condominium? Because obviously it's either a shared structure or it's brand new. So is a home inspection even necessary at that point?
I would say the new construction is going to be more prevalent now than ever. Really, we like to go down to phase inspections now. I can go in and look at a house after it's built. But
what does that mean, phase inspection?
So a phase inspection, typically on most inspectors, there's going to be 3. So it's going to be a pre-pour inspection would be the first one. So they'll frame the slab up, and before they actually pour the slab on there, we'll come out there and look at the rebar, how the plumbing's laid, all the rough in. So that would be phase 1. 2 to 3, 4 months, sometimes 6 now, depending on the building materials. We'll come in and we'll do the phase 2 inspection, and that is before the sheetrock or hardy board goes up. So we can see all the plumbing, how it's run through the walls, the electrical, how it's supported, the rafters, the walls, if they're using any kind of pre-treated boards, if they're not using them where they're supposed to, how the windows are flashed, and on and on and on and on. So you actually see the skeleton of the house. So if you can imagine walking into a doctor with no skin on, he would be able to diagnose a lot of you really quick. And
get to the issues that could be really bad before it actually happens.
Exactly.
Do you find a lot of issues on new construction? Like when you go do these phase reports, are you finding major issues?
It's becoming more common recently.
Okay.
I can't say that. In the last couple of years, you find things that you can tell that probably they're expanding crews a little bit further than they should, or they just can't find enough people to do what they need to do.
I think that's good advice because I know a lot of times with our clients, a lot of the builders now have the 1, 2, 10 warranties, 1 year, like wall to wall, 2 on mechanicals, and 10 year on structure. We tell a lot of our clients like, hey, it's passing city inspections at month 10 or 11. Let's get an inspector out here. So that's good advice because I'll probably start encouraging people to do more phase inspections if it can prevent something maybe more major that we don't see behind the wall.
A lot of times, even if I can't catch phase 1, phase 2 is really important too. Phase 1's
Do you coordinate that with the builder? Or how does that work? Or do they just tell you like, hey, we're at this stage and you come out and check it out again?
That's exactly right. So what I do is I'll tell the clients because, typically if they're in state, they're looking at their house at least once or twice a week. Yeah. And they get updates on the super or the PM, project manager that's on site. And they usually tell them, hey, your sheetrock's going up this time, or hey, we're going to pour the concrete at this time. And usually we try to come in 2 or 3 days. And the last part of that phase inspection, I just wanted to touch base on that, is the final inspection. So when they finish the whole house, then we come in and we do the final inspection. And then we do talk about the 11th month warranty at that point coming back in before the builder warranty's up, because at that point they have to fix everything that's on the list.
So you just send the inspection to the client and then they give it to their PM.
Right. And I tell them
each phase.
Correct. And I tell them just hand it straight to them. If the gentleman or lady has any questions, they can call me and I'll answer it for them.
That's really good advice. So let's say what should a home buyer do when you're actually during the inspection? Do they need to be there? Like what do you recommend? Because I know we tell people come towards the end, and that's the main reason why I say that is so that you can actually focus on what you're doing. Because if a person's there, they're going to ask you a million questions while you're doing it. So like from an actual inspector, do you want them there during the inspection or to?
Well, okay, so
I know that's probably loaded too.
So what I do is I tell people this.
I sat at my house whenever you were doing mine.
I tell people this. I said, look, I can text and I can drive really good, but it's really hard for me to do both of them at once. And I said, it's the same as this home inspection. I can do the home inspection and we can talk, but I can't do both of them at the same time the way I'd like to. They can be there the whole time and they can ask me, they can do whatever they want. But if they want the best inspection possible, I would say come at about 20 to 30 minutes at the end. Typically, I'll catch the client up of where I'm at, any major concerns, so they can go over there and look at them and kind of start talking amongst themselves. And then at the very end, we sit down and go over the report line by line so they understand exactly what's going on during the home inspection.
And if you're working with one of us, Chris knows that I text him during the inspection like,
how's it going?
What'd you find?
What'd you find? Anything big? Yeah, no, and we appreciate that. You know, it's okay to ask those questions while we're rolling through too. It's because everybody needs
the replies I get back on a roof, bro. give me a minute
in the attic, in a crawl space, or something crazy like that. But yeah, that's kind of the deal. Is, you know, the last 20 minutes, 30 minutes, if you can be there. It's a good time to really, especially first-time buyers. If I'm talking to any first-time buyers right now, really try to get to that inspection at the end and listen to that inspector, listen to the report, and stop him while he's going over the report. Don't try to hold your questions till the very end because you will forget. Stop them right then. And then at the end, everything that you've ever wanted to ask anybody about a house, ask them before you let them go, because they'd be more than willing to help you out.
Yeah, I think it's very important for the client to show up on our end as agents, because when you get that piece of paper, it's almost impossible to really go through and say, hey, what's important? I think you do a really good job of saying, hey, this is part of living in a house. Like some of the little stuff, you're able to tell people this is a little thing, and other things you're like, hey, man, you really need to focus on this, because I've seen reports that my clients have gotten from inspectors that they've chosen that I've never worked with, and they do a good job. They're very thorough and very long reports, but they get so scared because they don't really know what's important.
Right.
So I think one of the things you do really well is being able to answer those questions and tell people what they need to focus on, and what are things that if it's a pre-owned house, like this is just part of living in a pre-owned house that.
Well, and people, they have to understand, just like a car, you buy a car, you don't just drive it. You change tires, you change oil, you put gas in it, you replace the windshield when it breaks. I mean, it's the same thing with a house. So what we try to do at CKA Home Inspections is we try to emphasize major concerns or safety concerns or something that's not working with a different color ink. So we use black, blue, and red. Black is typically just information on something that you would need to know about the house. Blue is going to be something that you were talking about, that you can grab a caulk gun and a screwdriver and go to town on anything that's loose or has some seals that are cracked. Yeah. And then there's going to be some red things that we talked about earlier that you really want a professional to come in there and take a look at it and then render their opinion, whether it be different of ours or the inspector or not. But it needs to be looked at by somebody else if it's in red, typically on our reports.
And I will tell you, if you need a resource, Chris has helped me a number of times. Like if I have if you need a plumber, he's got great plumbers he can recommend, electricians. He knows everybody. Chris, wrapping up here, what is the biggest piece of advice you can give to today's home buyers?
I would say find somebody as a realtor that you trust more than anything, because they're be the ones that are going to be guiding you through this whole process. And when they send you over to an inspector, make sure that you try to show up at the end of that inspection report, because it is going to be something that will be full of information. The inspector will talk to you and say things that might not make the report, but something that might stick with you later that was talked about. Like I said, we try to educate the client beyond the TREC standard of the home inspection report, because anybody can follow that. It's more about the continuing education really helps the inspector. Some people go to the actual classes. Some people do it online. You know, but as long as we're still doing it, we're able to help these clients out and be a resource. Like you said, even after the inspection.
I feel like our end is very relational, and I think a lot of times in inspections that gets lost, like with the client. I feel like that's part of what you do too, is you want to really build a relationship with that client. Yeah, so it goes beyond that. If they ever need to do something again or need help or another inspection, something like that. I didn't ask this, but I do want to circle back. Do you think sellers need to do pre-home inspections? Are you seeing that very often?
Yeah, and I think that's really important. I've found a lot of issues in houses doing the the pre-sale inspection that were dangerous for that person living there.
Oh, wow.
You know, like a water heater, gas fluid that hasn't been connected in probably 2-3 years, and things like that I found gas leaks in homes. So, yeah, I think they're really, really important. And it also lets the seller know what to look for and what to fix before the buyer's inspector comes out, and it helps you get ready for the inspection.
What's the craziest thing you've seen during inspection?
The craziest thing I've seen is the snake that we got in a fight with underneath that house in Cleveland. Yeah, that's a pretty good video. It's on our website.
I bet you booked it out there pretty quick.
Yeah, that's the craziest thing. The most dangerous thing I seen was I was at PK Possum Kingdom Lake. They had a little manufactured home under there. It was like a weekend deal, and I went under there, and it was probably about 30% full of gas. So they'd had a gas leak under there for who knows how long.
Just ready to explode.
Just waiting for something to light it up. Yeah, that was kind of fun calling 911.
Well, I know you've been in Fort Worth for pretty much forever. So kind of wrapping up, what's your favorite thing about Fort Worth? And for somebody that maybe doesn't live here, coming to the area, what would you tell them about the city of Fort Worth?
The city of Fort Worth has a lot to offer in a variety of different ways. I've been here for a long time. I've seen the city grow. There's plenty of areas to go. It's a great city. The hustle and bustle hasn't made it here yet. It's still more of a relaxed atmosphere just about everywhere you go in Fort Worth. Coming to this, if you're not here, we have everything you can think of around here. Dallas Cowboys sports teams. We've got great neighborhoods, great schools.
Where's the best margarita?
Best margarita is in Southwest Fort Worth at My Casa.
That is true. So if you use Chris for a home inspection, you need to tell him to make you a margarita. Chris, thanks for coming in. I appreciate it, and I appreciate what you do for our clients. Real quick, share how, if anybody wants to get in touch with you with more questions or possibly schedule an inspection, how can they get a hold of you?
Yeah, I'd like to preempt that by saying with these numbers, whether you've been a client of mine or not, and you just need a resource to reach out to, I'd be glad to answer any questions from anybody that has one regarding home inspections. And we can be reached at www.ckahomeinspections.com. That's inspections with the S on the end. You can schedule online through that website as well. You can call 817-437-2405. Call and text that number to schedule with our office.
Is that Tracy?
That is Tracy.
Yeah, Tracy's the backbone of that operation.
And the front bone and every other bone you can think of. Absolutely.
Well, Chris, thanks again for coming in, and always appreciate your time.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.